Well, good morning to Creative Friday. Now, I'm walking through someone's garden. I'm not going to tell you who we're going to be talking to yet. This is going to be a little mystery tour through their garden, and what a splendid garden it is. So I'm coming round here, and very shortly we shall be meeting our mystery guest on Creative Friday. And here's the man himself, Phil Hemsley. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Michael. Nice to see you.
And it's good to see you, and thank you for inviting us into your studio.
It's a pleasure.
Now, Phil, you are not just our friend and neighbour and an active member in our community and church, but you are our resident artist in Longthorpe.
Yes, I think I do probably have that kind of honour.
And we know you, Phil, as a very, very competent artist. So tell us, please, how you got into painting.
Right. Well, I started seriously painting when I was actually working abroad in the 80s. I was working in the Sultanate of Oman, and I decided one day, after repeatedly going into the bar every evening after dinner, that it wasn't such a good idea to be drinking so much alcohol. So I thought I'd find something else to do in some of the evenings. So I thought I'd take up doing a bit of painting. So I started painting out there, and I ended up selling some of the paintings to some of the local expats, because they saw my work and they thought, "Do you sell?" And I said, "Well, I hadn't, but I can do." So I ended up selling there, and then came back to the UK, and I didn't really do very much painting at that time in the UK. So it wasn't really then again until I went to the BVI with Patsy in the 90s, mid-90s, that I started painting again seriously, and that also developed into selling to local tourists coming off the cruise boats in Tortola, and I sold quite a lot to mainly Americans and Canadians, and some expats as well out there. And that was, at each stage they were very different paintings, very different types of paintings. Now what I could actually do at this stage is I could show you now,
Yes, please.
some examples of the ones of those periods. So this is a picture of Oman. This is on Mazira Island, where I was based quite a lot of the time, and this is a beach scene. This is quite close to where I was actually living. This is like the beach in front of where I was.
I think we've got the sun in.
Have we?
Phil,
Yeah.
so that's better. That's
Yeah.
better. Lovely, lovely.
So there's some typical sort of old small little boats on the beach there. There are some dhows which they still use then, and whether they do now I don't know. So that is a typical view of that period. So I'll just put that back up there a second.
That's lovely.
And then we'll move on to Tortola, in the British Virgin Islands. Yeah, I abbreviated to the BVI because that's what we always called it. So the one that I've got here is of Road Town, which is like the capital of the British Virgin Islands, and that is the main street through there. So that's, and you'll probably notice that the style does change a bit.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I don't know why. I think it's partly influenced by the geography, the climate, and all sorts of issues. And because the light, you get a lot of light in both Mazira and in Oman and in the BVI. The colours are in some ways more vibrant than we probably have in this country. So you do get these pure colours, you know, like the oranges and things like that.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's is that okay?
Lovely. And we're going to pause there, I think, Phil, just for a moment. We're back now with you, Phil.
Okay. Well, we'll just talk a bit about work that I've done in since joining the Peterborough Art Society, in particular just concentrating on work done during lockdown, which has been a traumatic time for all of us, and this was something that kept me busy. So I'm going to work through from last summer. This is a picture that I did last summer at Wells Next to Sea, That was when we were allowed to go out and about a bit. Then I've got one here which is more local. So this is Fotheringhay, and that was in the autumn, and that's the main approach road coming into the village with this fabulous church, of course. And then we've got one of Anglesey Abbey in the autumn with these fantastic colours, autumnal colours that it's famous for, apart from the bluebells. So that's another one there. And then there's a series here, excuse me, there's a series here of paintings in Ferry Meadows, which has been an absolute godsend, I think we'd all agree, during lockdown. So this is one of the lakes. Don't ask me which lake it is, because I never know what they're called. So that was like end of the day, early dusk. This is one of walk through what I call Longthorn Woods, but Mike says it's probably called Bluebell Woods really, but it's part of Bluebell Woods. That's the path going through there. And finally, we've got another one again, Ferry Meadows, and this is in, I think, in about February. I don't know if it actually says on there. No, it doesn't. It's in February, I think. Excuse me, got a cough there. With the snow and the ice again on. This was actually on the water meadow bit, looking across from the wooden path that runs along on the north side of the river.
Oh, they're absolutely wonderful, Phil. Phil, do you specialise in any particular medium?
I do really. I probably should have mentioned it before, but these are all watercolours. I have tried oils, but I do generally work in watercolours, and I do concentrate on cityscapes. I do landscapes, obviously. Seascapes I sometimes do, which I quite enjoy as well. I've done a few portraits, but it's not really my forte. And I do still life sometimes.
Have you done any pastels, Phil?
Yes, I have. Funnily enough, I mean, this is a very simple thing here, but this is just one I stuck up here. I did do this little one. I mean, it's, I don't know, you can see how that's stuck on there. No, we'll take that off. So that's just a little long distance view of a pastel landscape. Yeah. And I do sometimes, with some of my watercolours, I actually use pastels with my watercolours. They're dry, what I call dry pastels, as opposed to the wax ones.
And what about influences upon your painting? Are there any people who have particularly influenced you?
Yes, I suppose one of my earliest influences, with watercolours particularly, was Turner. There are one or two paintings of his which I think are magnificent. There's one painting which I did actually try and do a copy of once many years ago, and it's one of these Greek semi-imaginative, I think it was a subject that he made up, but I also like the one of the paintings I particularly like is one of the boats that he's done some fantastic boats. Well, actually, I'm just checking what they call it now. The Fighting Temeraire, which you may have heard of, which is these wonderful sort of skies, a lot of gold in the picture, and another person, a more modern artist, who probably you won't have heard of, is somebody called Roland Hilder, who's an American artist who lived and worked in the UK a lot. And he influenced me a lot when I was first starting out in Oman painting, because he did seascapes, and there was I did a lot of paintings with boats in at that time.
Okay, Phil, we're going to stop there for a moment. Right, Phil, we're back with you again, and I think we're going to see the man in action now.
Well, we're going to try, yes.
Phil, do you paint every week or every month? How often do you come into here?
It's a bit sporadic, and it tends to be when the mood seizes me, or if the weather's rotten and I can't go outside and do anything very much. I sometimes come out here and do a bit of painting, because I paint a lot of the time based on photographs that I've taken with my iPhone when I'm out and about walking in Ferry Meadows or whatever. So I use that, and then I do.
Phil, I'm going to come and look over your shoulder because to see the man at work. So, now this is something you've obviously started earlier.
Yeah.
When did you start this?
I started this one a couple of days ago, so I've had a few little goes at it.
Right.
And it'll take me. Again, it does vary. It can take me 5 or 6 hours perhaps to do a painting, but I have been known to do them in a couple of hours. But it just varies as to how well they're coming on, and some of them almost paint themselves, to be honest, and, which sounds crazy, but you know, things just go perfectly, and other times it takes a little bit more work and modification, because people say you can't undo things on a watercolour as well. To be honest, that's not true, strictly speaking. You can undo things. You can vary things I use gouache white sometimes because that is a thicker paint, and if you mix it with other things, it does it performs a little bit more like oil paint in some ways, and you can use it to lighten something down quite dramatically if you think you've got it too dark.
How was this picture conceived? Did you go out and take a photograph, or are you doing it from memory?
I've done it from. I've used a photograph. I used the photograph mainly to get the composition as to my liking, and then the colours. Sometimes I'd use the colours as a basis, but I will probably I play around with the colours until I think it's starting to make some kind of sense.
Yes.
I try and use reasonably good quality watercolours because it does pay, and also the paper is very important, because this particular is I think I've got here. I just need to check which one it was, but yeah, it's an English manufacturer paper.
Do you ever paint on canvas?
I never have. You can buy boards for watercolours apparently, but canvases are more for doing oils, that kind of thing. So yeah, the one that I've got here is, it should be able to find where I've written it down here somewhere. Did I write it down or not? Oh yes, Saunders Waterford this is.
Right.
But probably my favourite paper is a French paper. It's called Arches, and it comes in a block, so it's sealed around the edges, and you don't have to do this. What I've had to do here is stick this down, and it's actually come unstuck, unfortunately. That helps prevent it from stretching too much, but I use Arches quite a lot, and also it makes it more mobile, because when it's on a block, you don't have to have it supported on anything. It's self-supporting.
Yeah. Well, Phil, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure seeing you work, and so interesting to hear how your work has developed over the years. So thank you so much for sharing your artistic creation with us. And so when do you think this particular piece of work will be finished? Is it?
Well, it wouldn't be very long. This would probably be at the most another half an hour to an hour.
Super.
And I'd hope to have it pretty well finished then.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Phil. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Michael.
Hello again, Phil. Now, since I was with you last time, you have finished the picture you were working on.
I have.
And I think I see it there. You're going to show this.
I'll just hold it up
to us. Wow, that looks tremendous. Well done. That looks lovely. And also, I think that one of your paintings has been made into a card which you're selling in Longthorpe Post Office.
Yes, I've got several in there, but there's one particularly of the church,
right?
Which is this one here.
Yeah, and that's
comes with an envelope and a plastic
sleeve.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is for sale, I think, for £2.50.
Yes.
In Longthorpe Post Office, and a lovely picture of St Botolph's Church.
That's correct.
Well done, Phil, and thank you so much for being part of Creative Friday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.